Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Educators, Performers, Creators Show, the EPC show. Yay! This is the ninth episode. Today, I'm having an informal chat with a colleague and a friend, a language educator, Noah Geisel. I want to remind everyone, if you're watching live, you can participate by asking your questions on YouTube. Leave a comment there on Google Plus, leave a comment in the event, or if you're a Twitter person, a lot of Noah's followers are on Twitter, you can tweet using the hashtag, here it is, EPC Show, hashtag EPC Show. So here is Noah. Hi.
Hi, Paulino.
How are you?
I am fantastic.
Good. So we see a lot of light from behind you. What time is it there?
It is 10 a.m. and it is a beautiful day in Denver, Colorado. Uncanny how beautiful it is for November.
Well, here in Minnesota, we are about to get some snow. So how are you doing these days?
I'm doing really well. Lots of exciting things going on, especially with the educational technology.
Perfect. Well, let's start with some big topics because I like big picture topics. Big, yes, like that. So I know you are an ideas man and an inspiration man. Tell me a little bit about where do you get your ideas from or your inspiration from, and how do you process that? What do you do with them once you get them? What do you do?
To be honest, a lot of it is just environmental and just always having my eyes open and my mind open to ideas and just seeking inspiration everywhere. So, if I'm at a conference and in a session, I'm going to be clearly open to ideas from the presenter. One thing I tell folks when they say, "Oh my gosh, I was in a session, it just wasn't really meeting my needs," is even when I'm in a session that's not meeting my needs, my mind will catch on one thing they say and take it in a totally different tangent, and I'll get ideas there. But it's also just when I'm walking around, the music I listen to, the words I read, I get a ton of ideas from Twitter. I get a ton of ideas from Fast Company magazine. I love that magazine. It's just so all over the map and exposes me to things that just have nothing to do with education. And so it's sort of this disrupting game to think of, okay, here's this really cool inspirational application I'm reading about in Fast Company. What does it have to do with education? And trying to approach it through a lens of, this has everything to do with education. I just need to figure out what.
Perfect. And then once you get those ideas, you just get inspired and let your ideas stay in your mind for a while until they come to fruition in some way, or you process them in some way, or maybe you are note taking, you are recording, or what do you do with those ideas?
Yeah, they absolutely cannot just sit in my head. I don't know if it's high school concussions or what, but I cannot remember them if I do not write them down. So, sometimes it's usually just quickly, I always have a little flip notepad um, by my bed, and now that in the digital age, I quit carrying it because I can just view it in my phone, and I just have a just running idea Google Doc, and so I'll get it there, so it's quick and easy to find, and then when I go develop the idea, I'll give it its own space, and depending on what the idea is, maybe that's its own Google Doc or Evernote, or maybe it's something that's more physical, in the paper and pen world, or even cutting pictures out of magazines to kind of help me get my ideas together through pictures and making a collage.
Great. Do you remember an example that maybe you got an idea or an inspiration from your students or a conference or some podcast or anything, and then you process them and something else came out of that, a new application, an idea for a class, or an idea for a presentation on a conference? Do you remember any examples of that?
Yeah, and that's everything, right? I wouldn't I'd say that I almost exclusively rely on a spark plug. Maybe it's not always conscious, maybe it's sometimes subconscious, but there's always a spark plug that sends me off. It's not everything's not just born inside my own head. I really rely on the collective consciousness out there. A good example that comes to mind is a few years ago I was just at a Colorado Rockies baseball game, and I don't know how often you go see the Twins out there, Paulino, but
Not very often, no.
in Major League Baseball games, it's really common for each batter who comes to the plate has previously told the scoreboard operator, hey, here's a song that I want you to play when it's my turn to come up to bat. This is a song that's going to pump me up and get me, my juices flowing for my at bat. And so I was sitting there thinking, that is just so cool. But how come it's only like professional baseball players and professional wrestlers who get their own theme songs when they come out, right? Like, how come my students can't have their own theme song? And so I was really lucky that semester to be working with a student teacher, and she had really taken the reins early on. And so while she was up in the front of the room teaching, I was in the back wearing headphones and going into GarageBand and taking dozens and dozens, probably like maybe 75 Spanish pop songs, and editing them down to little 5-second clips. And then we did a selection show in each class where students got to pick their theme song. And because there were far more songs than there were students, nobody was left feeling like they got a leftover song, right? And so I then would just go back into iTunes and rename the song with the student's name. And so for each class, I had a playlist with all these students' theme songs that we could use, maybe one day a week. Instead of students raising their hands to get called on, I would put the playlist on random. And so you heard your song, you got called on. Or if we were doing competitions at the board, the student who won would get their theme song played. And then to show where they took it and iterated upon it beyond where I would have imagined is students within 2-3 days, the song would kind of fade out on their theme song, and I had some students who would continue singing because they had gone on YouTube, looked up the song, and memorized their theme song. Really took ownership over it.
That's awesome. That's great. We have a comment from Catherine Useling. She says, hi, greetings from
Hi,
Washington
Catherine.
State. I'm so jealous of Washington State. No, greetings from Washington State. I'm so jealous for your snow. Catherine, you can take it all. Come here, get it. Well, no, that's okay. We love snow here in Minnesota. But she offers this insight. PLN, professional learning networks and conferences, offer many ways to collaborate. And Noah, you and I were talking just on our green room before the show started about collaboration, especially with the new generation, the generation like people on YouTube, helping each other grow as media people. But I think it happens in many places, and particularly in education, with teachers collaborating and helping each other. What can you tell us about your experiences with collaboration?
Oh my God, specific to what Catherine was saying about with the PLN and conferences, something, and quick aside, if you want to show everybody Catherine's handle again, Catherine is a great follow on Twitter. She's super active and a mega sharer of all things awesome. Highly recommend checking her out. And if you are a
Here,
language teacher,
we'll show her. Here it is, Catherine KU72.
there
Shout
you
out to
go.
her, and now people can follow her.
Exactly. She's a great presenter on using Web 2.0 tools in the language classroom as well. But getting to that PLN and conference is sort of a combination of that. Something I started doing, I think in June, was I kind of noticed that some of the best learning and collaboration that happens at a conference, that in-person learning, are what I sort of nicknamed couch conversations. It's not the one person speaking to 100 people. It's two people having lunch together, or just waiting to get into a room and sitting on a couch outside, or waiting in line for something, right? And these two people just connecting and sharing. And it occurred to me, and I sort of mentioned it to somebody else, and they said, totally, that's where like my best conversations My best learning at conferences comes from those conversations. And so I thought, the shame of that is we're not capturing that. It's inspiring, it's motivating, it's a feel-good moment, but it kind of dies on the vine right there unless we document it. And so I started blogging what I called couch conversations. And so, just having that awesome conversation on the couch, and then, before I get up from the couch, saying bye to them, and then just pulling out my laptop and really quick doing a blog post about the learning and sharing that happened in that moment, so that it's accessible to me, it's accessible to that person, later on. It's not just living in our domes, but it's also out there and available to everyone else to, read and also to comment on, to share it out in their own networks, and to give feedback, and use it to get their own tangential lines of thinking to make it even better.
Great. And talking about feedback, we have Teresa Conant, who is watching today live, says, the student theme song idea is so stupendous. Thank you, Teresa, for your feedback. I'm sure you would love to have your own theme song. Thank you very much. And
That was me
now,
giving her a heart, since I can't like things on here.
that's
That was a
it, your
like.
heart. Now, you mentioned about writing a quick blog, sharing your ideas, your conversation with others, and I feel like we teachers share a lot, and we kind of open up. Some teachers more than others of what we do, but in general, going to a lot of conferences, I do feel a sense of collaboration and openness because we all want the status of education to grow, and help each other. But at the same time, you said you are putting your ideas in a blog. You are making some choices, and some other people may have different opinions, and in a way, you're taking some risks in the way you are sharing that information. What do you think is the function of risk taking in professional development, for example?
Oh, wow, that's an awesome question. I think you kind of hit on two things there, and I'm going to go back to something you were talking about before when you were talking about the collaboration and the social media, and our conversation before this in the green room. And there's a great Frontline episode on PBS called Generation Like that really talks about folks like you, Paulina, these YouTubers. And I think it really applies to educators, this whole generation like mentality. And the key takeaway for me is that we are not in competition with one another. There may be prizes, there may be awards, a conference may select a best of presentation, but at the end of the day, it's detrimental to ourselves and just our own professionalism to view ourselves in competition, because when folks who follow me on Twitter, find out about you through the EPC show, and now they know about Catherine, and we're all elevated, right? And so I think it's really dangerous and detrimental for us to be viewing one another as competition. It's more about if, I decide to start doing a better job about starting my own blog instead of just using others' platforms, I need to be letting other people know about your blog, about the creative language class blog, about the Musicuentos blog, and sharing out other people's blogs, and vice versa, because the more that's out there and available for one another, the better. And so going back to, I guess, the more specific question about risk-taking and professional development, the big buzzword of, I think, late 2013 and all of 2014 in education has been grit. And I think, that's a related word, I'd say, to risk-taking, that we have to be willing to take the chance of failure. And I think one thing that gets lost in the conversations about grit and this embrace of failure is that if we just say we're going to embrace failure, I don't know that that's enough. I don't think that that's going far enough. I think we need to always have the caveat that sort of embrace of failure is coupled with resilience, that we fail, and we fail hard, and we fail fast, and that's great, but then we rebound, we pick ourselves up, and we reflect, we retool it, and we retry it. To just fail is not good enough. We need to have the resilience that we learn from it and get right, dust ourselves up, get back up, and learn from it, and go out there and try and do better the next time.
Yes, and I believe that's also a similar process that we go through as language learners, and our students go through as language learners of taking those risks and not being afraid of failure, but learning from those failures. Catherine just have another comment. She also liked your language theme song activity, and she adds, "We spend so much time with our colleagues at school. When we meet new people at conferences or online, we garner different perspectives." Thank you, Catherine, for your comment. And learning a language, it's also all about getting a different perspective and taking risks. What do you think are, what is the function or the, how does risk taking work specifically more in language learning? Something that we can either tell our students or model to our students related to language learning and risk taking.
Yeah, and I'd say you can do great as a language learner on worksheets and fill in the blank without risk taking. But if we want our students to go on to become proficient in the language, it is absolutely required for them to exhibit risk taking. I just don't think you can get away from it that, when they go beyond us in K-12 and they're in college and they decide to study abroad and they're in Madrid, they're going to have a choice of, are they going to go hang out at O'Brien's, at the Irish pub in Madrid? Or are they going to be sitting there in the cafe looking across the room and seeing two old men there having coffee every day? And are they going to have the confidence to take the risk to walk over to those two old men and say, "Hola, puedo practicar mi español," right? I mean, that's risk taking. And if we don't instill that in them in the classroom, we're doing them a disservice because we're greatly increasing the odds, I think, that they end up at O'Brien's instead of with those two old guys at the cafe when they're studying abroad. Beyond just going up to strangers, there's other types of risk taking in the language learning as well. When you're learning a language, a conversation that I heard the other day is that there's no baby pool for language learning. There's no little 6-inch deep water that you can kind of step in. Another language is the Pacific Ocean, essentially, and you can't see the bottom, and it can be really scary. There's riptides that'll take you all the way out, right? And we just have to, I hope I'm not taking the analogy too far, but we have to get our students to be willing to take the risk that if they go in a little bit, it may not seem like they've gone very far because there's still this vast ocean out there that they can't even see the ends of or the bottom of. And, but once they go out a little bit and wade and get comfortable, they'll turn back and look at the beach and be like, "Whoa, I had no idea I was this far out." And that's where that sense of accomplishment and sense of, this is achievable starts to come from. And the last thing I'll say about risk taking is I would encourage every language teacher to rethink their rubrics. And as objective as we want our rubrics to be, and I'm a strong believer that every assignment should have a rubric that really specifically lays out what the expectations are, because when our students know the expectations, they will hit those expectations. But something that I started doing a few years ago was saying 20% of every rubric was risk-taking. So 80% were these objective measures that they knew about ahead of time, and 20% was risk-taking. And I would ask them when we introduced the rubric, what does risk-taking look like on this assignment? How will I know when I'm grading you, what are my look-fors to know that you took risks and challenged yourself and really stretched your comfort zone on this assignment? And so then they would, tell me what the look-fors were, and in doing so, they're giving their classmates ideas of what they can do to push the envelope. And I thought it was really amazing and really got kids to do amazing things that they might not have felt comfortable doing otherwise.
Wow, thank you for those insights. And I guess I forgot to tell you in the introduction, for those who don't know Noah, he was the 2013 ACFL National Language Teacher of the Year. And that's why he has such an amazing insight and connections. And I'm really delighted to have this chat with him. I want to bring in Catherine one more time. She's confirming what we're talking about. Teaching is not a competition. Exactly, Senor G. That's, by the way, Noah's handle on Twitter. Follow him at Senor G with an N, Senorg. Teachers are surprised when we share our ideas and resources. Take a risk, share. Thank you, Catherine, again. And talking about sharing, I would like, Noah, you to share with us what are your interests these days? What are you interested about this week?
Well, this week I'm really interested in the Broncos versus the Raiders.
Oh,
Professionally, you and I go back a lot of years now, Paulina. You know that I get really excited about stuff, and there's a few things I'm really interested in right now. One of them, I'd say for about a year now, is just one of the things I'm exploring and just looking for ideas on. So anybody who's watching this live or watches this when it's on YouTube, please hit us up, share your ideas on how you're doing this. But I'm really interested in this idea of student growth data around data points that quote unquote matter. And what I mean by that is so much of the kind of anti-testing or I guess pushback that we're hearing to testing is about, we're testing our students on multiple choice, data points that you could Google, to which you could Google the answers. And there's nothing in the 21st Century Skills Commission report that says, yeah, what employers really want are, people in the pipeline, who are going to be able to Google information that they could have Googled themselves. They want people who are going to be able to know what to do with a blank slate. And so what I'm getting at is, some of these skills like that Daniel Pink talks about in A Whole New Mind, things like empathy. How can we get it starting to measure that? And once we can find a data point around it, we can start to measure it, and we can start to measure growth around it. Things like analysis and synthesis of information. I think that one site that I'm really excited about is genius.com, formerly rapgenius.com. And it's all about annotating. It's taking information that's already there, be it a song lyric, a newspaper article, a poem, a historical speech, any text really, and annotating it, saying this is what it means, or giving analogies, giving insights, and then other folks in the community sort of validate your annotation. They give it they vote it up, and as folks who you don't know vote it up, that's yes, that's subjective, but it's also pretty valuable feedback, and you get genius IQ points is what they call them. And so as your IQ grows, that's really powerful growth data, I think, about how you're doing and your ability to synthesize and analyze information while sharing it out in this public space where it's not your friends. I think it'd be tough to game the system. It's folks who don't know you whose interest is in having the annotations be accurate and robust and rigorous, right? And so I think that is a really powerful growth data point, and I think it's on us teachers, at the classroom level, to be seeking out these sorts of student growth data points, using them, and then sharing them up. I don't think that we have people at the policy making level. I don't think we have people at the school board and superintendent level who are really on the scent of this trail right now. And so, they're not going to do this for us. That they're going with what they know, and there's nothing wrong with that. It was standardized tests have been around a long time, and they're what we know, and so they use those. But as teachers start using these more creative data points to get at, the skills that we're hearing from, the higher ed and business community that matter, I think that we get those with our students, we share them with our students and families, and we share those up to our supervisors. When we're sitting in our evaluation meetings, at the mid-year and end-of-year conversations, we're letting our principal know, hey, Mrs. Principal, hey, Mr. Principal, here's some student growth data that I think you really ought to be taking into consideration when you're looking at the student growth slice of the pie of my evaluation. And, hopefully they're all about that, but maybe that's a quandary for them. And so then they have to share it up to their supervisor, and then it does eventually get to the superintendent school board level. And that's all of a sudden when we can really, I think, impact some serious change in the profession.
Great. And I don't know if this is related to what you were talking about, but you mentioned to me that you might also be interested in digital badges. I personally don't have a lot of experience with digital badges. And could you tell me a little more what they are, how are they used, or how do you use them in relation to other professional development or gathering this data that you're talking about?
Yeah, so for folks who don't know about digital badging, a really accessible analogy is just thinking about those badges in Boy Scouts. And if you could do this sort of micro skill, you got this micro credential in the form of a badge that you could sew onto your uniform. And so if you could jump into a pool with all of your clothes on, it didn't matter if you were in Minneapolis or Denver or Paris, France. If you could jump in the pool for 10 minutes and not drown with all your clothes on, you got a swimming badge. And it's really objective. There's no A, there's no B, there's definitely not a D minus. You either earned your badge or you are still working towards earning it. And that there's this big movement now to sort of do this in the academic space, to look at our students through these micro credentials of their assets. And I think one of the powerful things it's going to do is really add to the student narrative, because right now we do a lot of stuff in our Spanish 2 class. They do a lot of stuff in their biology class, but the representation of that gets carried forward really in the form of their GPA, right? This is a B+ student with a 92% attendance rate who is partially proficient in reading, right? And that is the narrative around a student. And I think that the digital badges are going to be a way for us to start to recognize their assets, start to recognize that these sort of micro skills at a granular level of what students can do, and then really add to this narrative that not only is good for other teachers in their lives and future employers to know what is this student capable of, but also I think for that student, that I think it's important for them to have that information about themselves. I am good at blank, and I know this because I have this digital badge that I can take with me and show off to other people. And so, we right now have thousands of teachers using digital badges all around the country. I know there's some teachers doing that in languages as well. And they're doing some really amazing work, and they're finding it's motivating their students. I think one of the challenges is having those badges mean something outside of their own classroom, so that badge means something in the classroom next door. It means something in the classroom across town in the same school district. It means something, statewide and nationwide. There's this sort of standardization that this badge is objective enough and meaningful enough. It's not just the Mr. Senor Brenner badge. It's a badge that means something anywhere in language learning. Folks who have used LinguaFolio in the language teaching community, I think this is probably sounding really familiar to you, the kind of stamp sheets and those can-do statements. I think that really gets at the idea of digital badges in a powerful way. And anybody who has been doing LinguaFolio, I strongly encourage you to kind of dive into the digital badging world, because I think you are strongly positioned to get it at a really higher level than a lot of our colleagues who are going to be just starting out. And please get in touch with me. Let me help you. Let's do this together. I'm really interested in doing this not just in languages, but school-wide and district-wide, so that from preschool through 12th grade, we have badges that mean something in the school, in the greater community. We have community members endorsing it. That if I'm a high schooler, somebody at my school district has gone to Chipotle and said, "Hey, Chipotle, kids in our district want to work for you. Here's all these badges we offer. Which ones do you value in your employees? Would you be willing to tell our students that if they have this badge, that badge, and that badge that you value in your employees, that you don't care about their transcript, you don't care about the resume, they come in with those 3 or those 5 badges, you will guarantee them an interview at any area Chipotle." So all of a sudden there's a value to the student. They say, I see why this is important for me to be going after this and using these badges for my own self-reflection and goal setting.
Wow, not only a great explanation of what they are, but very practical uses of them. This is great. And Teresa, who it seems like she always reads my mind when I do a show with her questions, and a great segue into something a little more personal. She asks, why are you so articulate? Why you're so articulate. And thank you, Teresa, for your questions. This is a great segue, and we're kind of a reverse interview or chat. We're gonna go back to you, a little more personal. You can answer Teresa's question, but I'm interested to know a little bit of your language learning journey, and obviously you are very, very passionate about professional development, and that's one of the things that I like to do at the Educators Performance Creator Show. Find other people that are passionate just like me in many different topics and have these awesome conversations. But what are some of your journeys or experiences as a language learner, and then now more into the professional development field?
Gosh, I know that's going to take me all over the map. Thank you for thinking I'm articulate. To answer that question, I guess it would just be sort of like you said, Paul. You know, when you're passionate about what you're talking about, it kind of comes pretty easily to you, and it's tough to fake passion and being a true believer in the Kool-Aid that you're making. So, I guess that's what I'd have to say about that. On the language
Let,
learning and
let's make it easier. One experience with language learning, one experience with professional development.
Absolutely. I remember at the end of just a really horrific study abroad experience in college. It was 1 month long for most people. Mine ended a day early. My host family at 10 o'clock at night told me I was getting kicked out at 5 a.m. because they were going on vacation. And so I'm wandering around the streets of Madrid with my suitcase, waiting for everybody to wake up so I can go find a place to go. And I go to a cafe, order some coffee and breakfast, and buy a newspaper. And to this day, I can still remember the first. I'm going through this newspaper, and I read an article, and it was Mario Puzo, the author of The Godfather. It was his obituary, and I remember, I'm reading this and understanding it. And at the time, at the time, he still is just one of the greatest authors ever. He's one of my favorites, and to be sitting there about this author who I really felt passionate about, and here I'm kind of struggling in my own language learning journey. I've just had a really just kind of difficult few weeks in something that I thought was going to be awesome and kind of didn't end up being awesome. And here I am at 6 o'clock in the morning alone in Madrid, feeling bad for myself. And then I had this huge pat on the back where I read this article and I understood it. And I was like, I can do this, and this is really exciting for me, and I'm going to continue studying language and culture. And I think that was really a defining moment that set me on the path to eventually becoming a language teacher, which I certainly had no idea was going to happen. I didn't study education in college, and I was 3 years out of college when I started Spanish teaching. So it certainly, I didn't learn my Spanish because I thought one day I would be teaching it. It was more of I learned Spanish because I fell in love with the language and the culture, and then I kind of stumbled into the situation of this epiphany where, oh my God, I can pay my bills and have health insurance while spending all my waking hours sharing my love of language with other people. This is awesome.
Great. And any experience in the field of professional development that you feel proud about, or it's strong in your memory?
I mean, just anytime I can do professional development, it tends to be on Fridays and Saturdays, right? And then, on a Monday morning to get an email from a teacher saying, or especially Monday afternoon, oh my God, I tried this idea that I got from you, or maybe, you said this really stupid thing, but I twisted and turned it, made it my own for me and my students, and here's how I did it, and it was amazing. And that's sort of this whole idea of paying it forward and making a difference in the world, right? I mean, if I have two teachers who each have 175 students in their classes who walk away with something valuable from something I've shared in professional development, then I've just impacted hundreds and hundreds of students language learning or learning in another course, and that is just something that's hugely rewarding and about which I'm hugely passionate. I think Paulino, about Meme Martes, the culture blog on Tumblr. I think that's something I'm really happy about. I know it gets a lot of views, a lot of clicks from Spanish students around the country who their teachers are sending them there for quick-hitting pop culture realia. And that's something I'm going to continue to build. I've been a little slack about it lately, but where it's over 100 posts, and hopefully as more people do it using that sort of sharing function, reblogging function on Tumblr, we get up to where we have thousands of these, and that's really awesome as well. Seeing where a few other people have taken some of the ideas, I know that Sarah Connor and Kara Jacobs took the sort of culture homework, all you can eat menu idea of, you're going to get 100 culture points a month, whatever, and here's 10-point ideas, here's 20-point ideas, here's 30-point ideas. You dive into what's going to meet your interest in studying culture, students, and explore it on your own, whether that's the food, history, music, what you name it. And they've taken, what I started and just made it a million times more awesome. And so that's another thing that's been really just rewarding and just encourages because sometimes you're sitting there at 1 o'clock in the morning typing things into the glow of your computer screen. I know you know this feeling, Paulino, and you're thinking, I think this is really cool, but is this going to make a difference in the world? Is this really valuable to other people, or is it just me pursuing, something shiny? And the next when it turns out that other people are like, this is shiny, and that's okay. It's awesome, and I love this, and thank you. This is making a difference in my own teaching and learning. That makes it all worth it, and really inspires you to keep going and keep pushing the envelope and coming up with new and inspiring stuff that's going to really help teachers. And I think the last thing I'll say is that, having a teacher come up to me and say, I'm retiring in 3 months, and after the last hour with you, I'm now thinking that maybe I shouldn't retire yet. Like, there's so much there that has me so excited to try, and I don't have time in the next 3 months, and now I'm wondering if I maybe should, not retire yet. So that's like, whoa.
Wow, wow, that's really inspiring. Well, wrapping things up here, this was great to have this informal conversation with you. We have a call to action from Catherine, who says, let's contact top 50 companies and ask them Senor G's question. Which of these digital badge competencies would you value or support? That's a great call to action and idea. Let's get right to it, right?
We're on it. We're on it. Catherine, get in touch with me off screen, and I'll let you know what we're already working on that, and happy to invite you into the fold.
Excellent. So I invite you to follow Senor G on Twitter, SENORG, and get all his insight. And that's also how you can get in touch with him. I'll do my best to include all the links that we mentioned today in the description of the YouTube video. Please continue the conversation with us with your comments and questions. And this has been one episode of the EPC show. You can see them all at epcshow.com. If you are an educator, a performer, or creator of any type, please contact me if you'd like to have a conversation with me here on the EPC show. It could be informal like this, or you can bring your friends and we could have a panel discussion of any topic you want. I would like to say a big, big thank you to everyone who participated today and watching comments, and especially to Noah for being here with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paulino.
Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.